Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews video. Today we are looking at Liber Hereticus for Warhammer The Horus Heresy. So first of all I want to say massive thanks to Games Workshop who sent us this a little early for free to review. This is essentially the army book for the Traitor Legions for Warhammer The Horus Heresy. We've got the big Age of Darkness box up for pre-orders today, and if you are playing one of the 9 Traitor Legions, this is the book that you want to pick up. It contains the core kind of Adeptus Astartes army list, and it also contains all the rules for the Traitor Legions and all their specific units as well. It's £42.50 off the top of my head, but it is a chunky old book. I think it's over 340 pages, so yeah, it's certainly a biggie. Previously in the old edition of the Horus Heresy, this was actually made up of 2 different books, and then there was a lot of stuff that was also in the black box as well. This is really the first time we get a fully kind of integrated, all-in-one big book volume. So what we do is have a look through this book, see kind of what's changed, what's new, have a look at the various kind of Legion traits and reactions and stuff that they've got, and yeah, all the fun stuff that is inside here. So the first half of the book is basically the kind of generic Legion as Astartes kind of army list as well. So this gives you your kind of your rules for building. So this is the same as from the core book. So you've got a standard force organisation chart, an optional Lord of War, and an optional allied detachment. And then of your army, a quarter of your force can be either Primarch or Lord of War, or a combination of the two, as long as it doesn't exceed that 25% kind of cap. With standard gamers of Horus Heresy being around 3,000 points, that means you've got 750 points to play with on Lords of War and Primarchs and all that kind of stuff. Allies can be dropped in using the matrix here, and there's various abilities based on kind of what level of alliance that they are. You'll note that we've got the Mechanicum in the Imperial Army. We don't have those books at launch, but I suspect they will follow fairly quickly, because I imagine Games Workshop will want to have everybody with the rules in order to play their armies. So we get the kind of generic Astartes list in here. A lot of this is very similar to what we've seen for the previous edition of the game, so I'm not going to go into like massive changes here. We are going to follow this with another video and review on the website, where we go into kind of more depth on the individual kind of unit options and kind of what you can take in a standard Space Marine army. The purpose of this review will really be focusing on the kind of heretic side of things and calling out any of the kind of big changes in the standard kind of Astartes list as well. So yeah, for changes, the first place we see stuff really change is with Contempt of Dreadnoughts. So we get, in fact, I tell a lie, Terminators have got 2 wounds, that's a pretty big change. But Contempt of Dreadnoughts have had quite a change. Previously in the old edition of the game, we had 3 different profiles for Contemptors. We had the kind of the light scout tyre dreadnoughts, we had the standard Contempt of Dreadnought, and then we had the Mortis Dreadnought as well, armed with kind of double weapons. The light dreadnought is kind of dropped, it no longer exists in these rules. However, the standard elite Legion Contemptor choice, which can be taken in a kind of 1 to 3 as normal, does contain the rules for the Mortis stuff. So the target and array, the ability to have 2 different weapons options, all the stuff that you get on the Mortis is built into the base profile of the Contemptor. So don't worry, you'll still be able to use your existing models. Games Workshop have also said that any models that have been removed from here, of which again there's a couple, will get rules up on Warhammer Community, and they'll be fully legal as well. I think what they wanted to do with this book was make sure that all the models in here were kind of kits that you could buy. You know, you can go into your local Games Workshop and be able to construct this list. That's something that they've kind of done in a lot of recent books now across different systems, and it's no massive surprise really. Obviously a lot of these kits are Forge World ones, but I think the intent is all the core stuff eventually will become plastic as the edition goes on. One thing that we do see dropped from the book is attack bikes. they're gone. They're a really old kit. There was never a Heresy equivalent. Again, they should be in the kind of supplemental list on the website. Likewise, Sky Hunters used to have a different squad that was a heavy slot where they could all take the same heavy weapon. That's changed and has been folded into the basic Sky Hunter profile. So they can now take whichever heavy weapon they want on all of the models in the fast attack slot. So that's pretty cool. Land Speeders, again, we've now got the Proteus Land Speeder to replace it. The existing classic Land Speeder is gone. It's also worth mentioning that classic Dreadnoughts aren't in this book as well, but I suspect they will be in the supplemental file on the Games Workshop website as well. While we're on this page as well, I'll just point out that Land Speeders and Javelins now have toughness and wounds as well, in a similar way to the Dreadnoughts now getting them. Makes them a bit more resistant to small arms fire. You're not going to be able to take out a Land Speeder or a Javelin with a lucky shot from a bolter by getting a lucky glancing hit and destroying it. So that's no longer a thing. I like that change. All the other vehicles still seem to have a vehicle profile as well, and we've got, again, all the usual Forge World stuff that you'd expect. We get a similar situation in the heavy support. The Leviathan Dreadnought is now has a standard kind of characteristic stat line like the other Dreadnoughts, and it's really quite tough now with toughness 8 and 7 wounds and a 2+ save. It's going to be difficult to chew through this thing. I prefer stuff like this to have these kind of profiles rather than the vehicle ones. I think that fits better on the vehicle profile. Speaking of vehicles, Land Raiders have also had a bit of a change around as well. We've now got just the Proteus pattern Land Raider, if you can find it, and the Proteus Explorator as your two kind of standard Land Raiders, so we haven't got the various types of different Land Raiders that we used to have in the past. Again, a lot of these upgrades and things are now kind of built into the profiles on these, and that's, I guess, a better way of doing it rather than multiple profiles. Spartan is now correctly called a Land Raider as well. It uses the same tracks we saw in the unboxing on the Age of Darkness set, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see a new Proteus kit that contains a lot of the parts from the Spartan as well. So yeah, lots of fun stuff. Obviously, since the original kind of core Astartes list was received for Horus Heresy, additional units were added in the black box over time. So this is now currently the most kind of up-to-date and complete kind of army list that you can get for the Astartes, so that's pretty cool. Like I say, we're going to focus on some of those individual units in a later kind of website article and video. Really, in this video, I want to look at the core kind of like Heretics Astartes stuff, so yeah. A couple of unit subtypes are introduced here as well. So if you've seen our review of the Age of Darkness box, you'll know that while each unit's got a unit type, there's subtypes that can be stacked on top of that to gain additional special rules and abilities and the like. So we get a few new ones added in this book. We've got the Skirmish subtype. That means your unit coherency is 3 inches rather than 2 inches, and it also increases your cover saves by 1 as well, so that's pretty fun. Bombard vehicles can now move at combat speed and fire ordnance weapons, so that's fun. And then Reinforced basically lets you ignore the damage of crew shaken results, and you don't have to snap fire with crew stunned as well, so it makes your vehicles a little bit more reliable. So one of the things that we've got in this book are rights of war. These are ways of kind of adjusting the force organisation chart to reflect different types of armies. A lot of these are a lot less restrictive than they used to be in the previous edition of the game, and basically the idea is that while everyone's got the same generic force organisation chart, these move things around in slots, they change what units align in order to create thematic forces. So what we'll do is we'll quickly run through these because they're pretty cool. So Recon Company is kind of built around your squads and reconnaissance squads. They get the restriction that means that they can only be taken as a non-compulsory choice, so that they can fill those slots themselves, which is pretty cool. However, you can't take heavy units or fortifications. You've got Angel's Wrath, which is a pretty cool kind of like flyer orientated one. So units can take Storm Eagles as dedicated transports. They can come in on the first turn without making a reserves roll, so really, really fun stuff there. we've got the Sky Hunter Phalanx, which basically lets you do a kind of like land speeder and jet bike based army. They get the line subtype as well, which is pretty fun. Drop pod assault, similar to the old one. Basically, your entire army can take drop pods. The way a drop pod assault has changed a little bit. So previously, you'd roll kind of reserves for each individual unit. Now, if you're coming down as a drop pod assault, your entire army comes down in one turn as part of that assault. So that's pretty cinematic as a load of drop pods come down on the battlefield. Yeah, really quite fun. Similar to that, we've got the Underworld Assault, which is the same kind of thing but with termite drills. Old Faithful Pride of the Legion is back. This basically lets you take your Terminators and Veteran Squads as a troops choice. And they also gain line as well, which is really good in this game because it means that they can contest objectives, they can take objectives for a start because no other unit in the game other than line can do that. There are some downsides though. You can't take any more non-infantry than infantry, and you can only take a single heavy support and fast attack slot. But if you're building an army around big blocks of Terminators and Veterans and that kind of stuff, that's a really good option for you. In the old boxes that we had, like Calth, that was a really good option because you had some Terminators and stuff. Arguably with the Age of Darkness box, you've got so many tactical marines, you don't really need to rely on that to build a legal list, so you've got some options there. We've also got Arma Spearhead. This allows you to take Predators as troops, and you get a special Predator HQ option as well, enabling you to do an entire tank army, which is really, really fun. Similar, you've also got the Brethren of Iron, which lets you take Battle Automator as non-compulsory troops choices. So yeah, if you want an army with lots of kind of Mechanicum units in there, you can do that. Obviously, in this one, you will need the Mechanicum book in order to unlock those units. We then got Fury the Ancient, which allows you to do an entire Dreadnought army. So you can take a Dreadnought as an Ancient. He becomes your HQ choice, and then it unlocks Contemptor kind of blocks as troops, and they gain line as well. So you can do an entire Dreadnought army. Really, really cool, really, really fun. I really want to do this myself, especially now we've got the plastic Leviathan and the plastic Contemptor, and I suspect a lot of people want to do this Fury of the Ancients as well, because I think it's going to be a pretty fun one to see. So yeah, another thing that we've got in here is something that we saw in the previous games, and is Legion consoles. So basically there's an option within the list, a console which is a HQ choice, which can then be upgraded with a number of different abilities. So they come from Librarians, Master of Signals. There's lots of fun stuff in here. One that Traitor players will probably want to look at is the Esoterist. So this guy allows you to take 3 demon units, and they have to be troops or elite choices, as part of your list. And then the Esoterist can basically rip open a hole in the warp and allow those units to deploy on the battlefield from that. Really, really cool. Obviously, you've got the downside that if your Esoterist dies, then you can't get those demons on the battlefield. But yeah, that's really quite fun, being able to take some demons as part of your army. Adds a bit of variety to your list. But yeah, we got a load of different options here. A lot of these are ones that we've seen in the previous edition of the game. And again, a lot of these work in conjunction with the Rights of War to enable you to do these different builds. There's different things that lean into different ways of playing. So I think people have quite some fun creating Legion consoles that fit the theme of their army. Like with the core book itself, we also get a huge bank of special rules as well. So at this point, we are going to have to flip between 2 books. There are going to be special rules within the core rules and special rules within this book as well. And basically these, rather than having these rules on the data sheets, these are kind of generic ones that can apply to multiple units. What they've done is add a kind of X value to a lot of them, so that you can have the same rule with different values, rather than having to create a new rule that does the same thing but slightly differently, like they had to in the previous edition. So we get quite a few pages of these to cover all the generic Legion stuff that's got special rules, and the special ones for the traitors as well. Again, quite a lot in here. I'd like to see a kind of like supplement book that consolidates all these together. I think that'd be really quite useful, because yeah, for a lot of these, until you've played a few games, you might struggle to remember what they do. But I'm sure as you start playing the game, you'll pick those up and it'll become second nature to you. We then get a kind of full armory of the Legions of Astartes, so this covers all your weaponry. This will be a nice one to bookmark with the included ribbon. You've got all your weapon profiles in there, and it does go through the whole lot, so really, really useful. Again, I can imagine some people making some cheat sheets so they've got them to hand, or kind of jotting down what your weapons do. Again, the main profiles in here don't actually include the weapon profiles on there, so you will need to look up these during the game. And again, the more you play the game, the more you'll get used to these kind of profiles and what they do. It's just going to be a bit of a learning curve to maybe people who are new to the game and picking up what these different profiles do. And then we get the same again for the war gear as well. Again, generally speaking, most of the war gear isn't spelt out within the main kind of rules profiles. You reference it to here, so it does have a little bit of looking up rules, and at first that may slow down things a little bit compared to the current Age of Sigmar and 40k system for people who are new to Heresy, but it is a better system because you tend to learn what those different rules do, and yeah, you'll just see that keyword on the profile then and be able to apply it. So now moving on to the Traitor Legions themselves, what we're going to do is have a look at what all of their unique abilities are, have a look at some of their rights and some of the rule profiles. There's some really fun stuff here. So for each of these we get a unique ability that is tied to that legion. So for the Emperor's Children we get Flawless Execution, to represent the fact that they're such kind of decent fighters. When they get to fight, they count as being an initiative step 1 higher than would normally be required. So generally speaking, that means that Emperor's Children will always fight before an equivalent unit from any other army. And in addition to that, when they're shooting as part of a reaction, they get +1 to hit. So bearing in mind that you don't hit on 6s or at -1 for Overwatch or return fire, most of the time that means that the Emperor's Children will be hitting on 2s as part of those reactions, which makes them really, really brutal. Playing off that as well, they get an advanced reaction. So advanced reactions you can only use once per game. The Emperor's Children one is quite an interesting one. Basically, when an enemy unit declares a charge, you yourself then get to make a charge roll. If you don't make the distance, your unit can shoot at the charging unit, and again it will be +1 to shoot because of the Legion rule. If you do make the charge rule, the opponent's charge is cancelled and you instead charge, getting the benefits, and the opponent doesn't get any benefits that they normally would do for charging. So that's a really, really cool advanced reaction that I think is quite thematic and fun. We get unique Warlord Traits for all the Legions. We also get unique Rights of Wars for all the Legions as well. So we've got the Maru Skara for the Emperor's Children. These basically let you outflank with a number of units during the game. So yeah, they just come on a specified turn, which is pretty cool. So normally you'd have to roll reserves. They just come on when they like. So that's pretty fun. Alternatively, you've got the Right of War, the 3rd Company Elite. This is what I'll be using for mine. This represents the Emperor's Children once Fulgrim's kind of gone into isolation and the Legion's just descending into debauchery. It unlocks Cacophony as troops, which is really, really fun. And you get to buy kind of augmetic upgrades to all of your units. You have to have them though in order to unlock the things. So if we flip over the page, we can see that so yeah, Fabius Baal's been kind of tinkering with the genetic makeup of the Legion and using some of the information that he's learned while on the Great Crusade. And yeah, normally your special characters can have these upgrades, but with that Right of War that we just saw, you can actually give them to the entire army. Sonic Streaks are really fun. When you charge or are charged, there's a -1 penalty to hit you, which is really, really fun. The Subsonic Pulsar ignores penalties for leadership and ballistic skill for night fighting. And then the Sonic Lance gives them a core template weapon with breaching and pinning, so that's pretty fun. We get a couple of unique power weapons as well that can upgrade your standard power weapons. In addition to rending, they also get Murderous Strike or Breaching, so pretty fun. some cool stuff there. You also get a unique consul, the Phoenix Warden, who is a bit of a kind of like, I guess, Phoenix Guard character that you can take. So he's fun. Fulgrim, the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, is still ace. He still gets extra attacks equal to the difference in initiative as well. He's pretty fun. And once per battle, he can shut down reactions from an enemy unit as well. So that's pretty good. If you think that your enemy is going to be relying on a certain reaction, you can just make them do a leadership test, otherwise it doesn't go off. So that's pretty fun as well. Phoenix Terminators, pretty much the same as they used to be. Obviously they've got 2 wounds now. They're still really, really good with their power spears. Palatine blades have changed a little bit. They've now lost the option to take jump packs, which is a massive shame, because I know a lot of people equipped those Palatine blades with the jump packs so they could be a little retinue for Eidolon. That's gone now, so unfortunately you're going to have to put them with a command squad or something. They're still really fun though. Again, a lot of the elite units now have 2 wounds each as well, so it makes them last a bit longer. Cacophony is still really fun as well. The Cacophony weapon is Assault 3, Strength 6, AP 5, with pinning, shell shock and deflagellate. So it's like a super Volkite, I guess, but it does have the gets hot rule. So when your squad of 10's throwing out 30 shots, there's a good chance you're going to take some damage too, but it's probably worth it. So yeah, they're really cool. You get Lord Commander Eidolon. He's still got his ridiculous Thunderhammer that strikes initiative on the charge, so he's pretty fun. We've also got Sol Tarvitz. If he's a loyalist one, so if you want to do a loyalist force, there's an option there for you. In fact, it's worth saying that even though this is the Traitor book, you can choose to use a lot of these as loyalist kind of legions if you want to. Obviously, you're not going to have access to all the options, and certain characters are locked, you know, to a traitor force. But it is fun that a lot of these do contain some loyalist characters to allow you to do that. We also get Lucius, who the model isn't out yet, but is out soon. Again, it's worth saying that basically anything that doesn't have a model doesn't have rules in this book. So any special characters that are mentioned that don't currently have a model, there's a good chance that they're getting one at some point. But off the top of my head, I think it's only Lucius who doesn't currently have a model out that is reflected in this book. All the other ones are removed. When we move on to the next Legion, the Iron Warriors, these used to have a few named special characters, but they have been removed from the book now because they don't have models to represent them, so that's a bit of a shame. The Iron Warriors ruler is really good, so when they make a shooting attack or melee attack against a Dreadnought, Automata, vehicle or building, they get to add 1 to the strength. So it really kind of reflects the fact that they're kind of siege specialists taking out tough targets. They'll find it easier to crack hard targets, so that's really, really fun. They also get a unique advanced reaction, which is just bananas good. So it's similar to Return Fire. However, they get to double the shots that the squad that's shooting back gets to make. So if you had a squad with 10 las cannons, they'd make 20 shots instead of just 10. Mental. But they do get gets hot on a 1 or 2. So there's a good chance that you are going to lose some models while doing it. It's really, to me, a kind of a last-ditch one. If you've lost the squad anyway, because don't forget you get to make the reaction after saves are made before models are removed as casualties. So you could have, say you've got a heavy squad with las cannons and, I don't know, a Kratos takes out your unit. You could decide to, okay, well I've lost the unit anyway, so I may as well use my once per game Bitter Fury and return fire with all the las cannon shots in the world and take out the unit that shot you. Again, like we mentioned in the main kind of book review, reactions are really going to impact what people do and how they kind of choose to do that ordering, so that's a pretty fun one. So yeah, again we get some unique Warlord Traits as well. We get some unique Rites of War. One of theirs, the Hammer of Olympia, kind of works with their unique bolters that they get. So what you can do is choose to upgrade your bolters to shrapnel bolters, which gain pinning. Generally they've got shorter range than normal ones, if you take this Rite of War, they get to make an additional shot with them as well. So you can really kind of build a force based around forcing pinning tests on units, which is pretty fun. They also get some unique Graviton Weapons as well. So yeah, some fun stuff. Perturabo has lost his unique Shadow Sword I think he used to have. Unfortunately that's gone now. It's no surprise, he was ridiculous points with it on there, but yeah, you've not got the option to do it anymore unfortunately. And like I say, a lot of the stuff that doesn't have profiles has been removed, so we've still got the Iron Circle Mana Pool and the Tyrant squad, but that is it for the Iron Warriors unfortunately. I suspect a lot of these will see expanded in future supplements. I suspect we'll see books representing various battles that have happened around the kind of the saga of the Horus Heresy. So the Nightlords are pretty fun. They've got a talent for murder, so if they're attacking something that's pinned, falling back, or they outnumber it, they get +1 to wound, which is really, really fun. Now, it sounds a bit situational in that obviously you're going to have to rely on people that are falling back or pinned, but there's a lot of stuff within the Nightlord list that can force kind of pinning tests, or can make you more susceptible to failing morale checks. So the Nightlords seem pretty cool to me. They get an advanced reaction which basically lets them redeploy. What happens is that the target unit immediately falls back but then immediately regroups. So you don't get the penalties of falling back, but you do get the advantage of moving out a distance of the oncoming charge. So that is pretty fun. The Rite of War, my favourite one's probably Terror Assault. So it always takes place at night, without a roll happen to happen, and obviously you roll during the game to see if night falls. A lot of your units have got like the ability to see during the night as well, so that's really handy. It also unlocks your Terror Squads and Raptor Squads as a troops choice as well, so that's pretty fun. Again, we get some unique weapons as well that they can take. Chain blades with breaching and shred are pretty nasty at AP3. We see a lot of this on some of their unique units. Conrad's Curse is pretty fun. If he manages to finish a fight, kills all enemy models, and he's kind of just there by himself at the end of it, all enemy units that aren't in combat but have line of sight to him have to take a pinning test. That's really cool because that then tees off your Legion ability, meaning that your units are then getting +1 to wound against those pinned units. So there's a lot of synergy in here and it's quite fun. A lot of your squads also cause fear as well, so that again plays off the fact that you want people to fail morale checks, have a penalty to that morale check, and then start fleeing in order to tee up your other units. So you've got, yeah, a lot of synergy going on and some fun stuff that you can do. The Contempt of Terminator Squads are pretty brutal too. They're pretty scary. Again, Deep Strike, which is fairly rare for a lot of Terminator Squads unless there's a special that gives it to them, and Fear. So yeah, I think these are going to be really fun to use. Next up we have another Legion that's close to my heart, the World Eaters. Now obviously these are going to be super aggressive, close combat based army, and their Legion rule reflects that. All World Eater units get an additional +1 to their attack when they charge, in addition to any other bonuses that they'd get. So if they've got Rage, for example, that gives them additional attacks, or even just the basic +1 attack for charging, this stacks with it, meaning these World Eater units are going to have so many attacks when they go into combat. They also get a really cool advanced reaction as well, where they get Feel No Pain 5+, when a unit's being shot at, and then once that shooting is resolved, your unit actually gets to make a charge against the shooting unit as well. So gives you a chance to weather some fire and then go in and rip the faces off with some World Eaters basically. So really fun. Berserker Assault's been my favourite of the Rites of War that they've got. It gives them +1 to running and charging. It unlocks Rampager Squads as troops. And it allows you to take Predators as fast attack, which is a bizarre one, but I'll go with that. So you've got lots of kind of Predators and kind of big blocks of Marines running up the table, ready to charge aggressively into things. So I think that's a really, really fun one. There is a limitation. Everything has to charge, but your World Eaters, you want to charge. That sounds like a whale of a time that they're going to have. So yeah, really fun. A more maybe sensible one is the Crimson Path, which gives you it will not die while outside your deployment zone. It limits you to a single heavy choice, so it is going to limit the kind of models that you can take. That's probably the more tournament effective one, but I like this one just for charging headlong at things. Blood to the Blood God. We also get some unique weapons for them. They're basically on the Rampager Squads, I think they're called, and the Red Butchers. We also get some other rules where you can upgrade your units to get additional attacks and reduce the strength of incoming hits against you, making you a bit more reliable in combat. So Angron is still big, crazy guy. He gets an additional attack every turn, so eventually he'll hit 10 attacks. Bearing in mind that you still get additional attacks for charging, plus bonus extra attacks for being World Eaters, and he's got paired weapons as well. He's getting an awful lot of attacks when he goes in. He's got quite a cool rule where he can make as many challenges as there are enemy characters nearby, and can allocate the attacks between them and just basically just take out a load of characters one after the other. Really, really fun. I quite like that. Red Butchers are pretty brutal. 2 attacks base, and obviously getting a load of attacks for charging in because you're World Eaters. Load of different weapon options as well. I can't remember if they used to be able to take lightning claws, but it does mean that if you wanted to, you could use the Terminators out of the Age of Darkness box and paint them as Red Butchers perhaps. Give them the lightning claws, and then you've got a load of attacks going in and just blend through kind of Armour 3 units. Rampager Squads are similar. They're really old models now, but we still get the rules for them. They're basically your elite power armoured guys. We also get a profile for Khan as well, because he is ace. Next up we've got the Death Guard, who are quite a resilient force, and kind of slow and steady advance while still firing weapons is kind of their scene. So their remorseless rule basically means that when they move they count as stationary, and there's never anything that can affect their movement as well. So you have heavy squads, they can slowly move up the table while still shooting at full effectiveness, so really, really nice. If there's any enemy abilities that slow down your movement, they're not really affected by it. And then their advanced reaction is really good. When a unit's shot at, they get a 4+ feel no pain, which is great. They can ignore half the damage, and then they get to make a normal move in any direction as well. So that's pretty good. They can weather a load of fire and then potentially get into a better position and capture an objective, or just set themselves up ready for their turn. So a lot of these advanced reactions, they are all one use only, but they do have some really, really cool stuff that they can do and improve the way the army works. One thing that I do want to call out is the Alchem Weapons that they have. They've all got Flesh Bane, which wounds non-vehicles on a 2+. The fact that these can replace any flamer based weapon, you take a special squad with flamers or a heavy squad with heavy flamers, swap them out for these things, and you've got template weapons that can hit a load of models. Obviously in this you still need to roll to hit, but you get a number of shots equal to what's covered by the template, and then wound on 2s makes them absolutely brutal. There is a downside that they get hot, so you could lose some models doing that, but it puts a massive threat on your opponents. And likewise we get the profiles for all the characters as well. Again, no real changes here, and again any kind of characters that don't have profiles in the kind of old edition of the game unfortunately no longer have rules for them. Like I say, anything that is removed from the book though is going to be on Warhammer Community as well, with rules to let you use those models. So we get into one of the more unusual legions, the Thousand Suns. Now obviously these were one of the more powerful ones in the previous edition of the game when they came out with the Prospero book. Their legion trait basically makes the entire army into psychers. Now it's worth noting that just because a unit is a psyker doesn't necessarily mean it gets a psychic power. All your characters, that includes your squad leaders, get access to minor arcana, which are basically like psychic powers light that they get to use for free. A lot of them have got a psychic test involved with it, but there's also some with like base abilities that always work. All your characters also get a psychic power as well, which they can buy for 15 points, so pretty good. They get a special advanced reaction, which is kind of tied into a psychic test. You can either get a 5+ invulnerable save if you fail it, or a 3+ invulnerable save if you pass the psychic test. So again, really good one of tanking some heavy fire by putting that on them. Now we'll talk about the Arcana briefly. They are the kind of abilities that all your squad leaders, all your characters are going to get as being part of your kind of Legion trait. And they've got some fun stuff that they can do. So Raptora, when you make a move or run, you can basically choose to turn on a invulnerable save for them. So you get a 6+ invulnerable save, and they've already got one, they can increase it by 1. But you've got to take a psychic test, and if they fail it, they take Perils of the Warp. Pyrite makes a unit get Hammer of Wrath, and they count as flame attacks as well. Again, you've got to do a psychic test to activate it. Pavoni gives you a +3 movement bonus to a unit when you use it. Kavadi is a bit of a shenanigans one, where when you're allocating, normally when you allocate wounds in Horus Heresy, the player who's taking the damage gets to allocate them. But with this power, the shooting player gets to allocate that wound, so you can pick out specific models in a unit, for example. So that's pretty fun. And Athenian, basically it kind of lessens the leadership, and that can stack with other leadership modifying abilities to try and make a unit fail a morale check. So while kind of less choice than the full kind of suite of psychic powers that the Thousand Suns used to have, there's a lot of different stuff to give them nice little abilities without making them over the top powerful or having to have a points cost in there or something to give them these different abilities. So I think they're quite cool. Yeah, I think one of the dangers with the Thousand Suns was that psychic powers, unless you've got things like the Sisters of Silence in there, was a little bit difficult to deal with sometimes. Speaking of difficult to deal with, Magnus the Red was often ridiculously powerful with some of the old psychic powers. He's obviously changed a little bit now that he hasn't got them. He no longer has a 2-tier profile where you can pay points to upgrade him into like Magnus the Ultimate Psyker. He does know every psychic power out of the core book, and he can switch which of these, wherever they've gone, the different abilities that they can trigger each turn. He can pick a different one each turn if he wants to, and he automatically gets those for free. He doesn't have to roll a psychic test for them, they just automatically go off. That said, for standard psychic powers, he does still have to roll. He's got nothing that kind of stops him from doing that. So yeah, they're pretty cool. Again, everything's psychers. We still get access to the psychic dreadnoughts and the psychic robots as well that were introduced in Inferno. So yeah, they're pretty fun. Less powerful than they were, but hopefully a lot more balanced now, I feel, for the Thousand Suns. So moving on to the Sons of Horus, again these get a really good Legion ability. Merciless Fighter means that the strength of any melee attacks against them are at -1 strength, making them really quite good in close combat. And again, that keys quite well with one of the rights that we'll see in a second, the Black Reaving, where all units get Rage 2, so they get extra attacks when they charge in, if they're fighting something that's already pinned in combat. So what you can do is go in with multiple units. The enemy is going to find it harder to hit you, and you get extra attacks against them, basically giving you the edge in close combat, so that's pretty fun. Their advanced reaction is very good as well. It's kind of like a extra return fire, but in the case of this one, as soon as a unit shoots, one of your units can shoot it, but it doesn't have to be the unit that's targeted. So basically it's an extra return fire from a different unit, so that's pretty cool as well. It gives you an extra kind of return fire you could potentially do in a turn if you've got a way of doing 2 reactions within the shooting phase. So that's really fun. They're also at +1 ballistic skill as well, so you'll be hitting on 2s. So yeah, if an enemy vehicle fires and you've got one of your heavy support squads nearby, you can just obliterate that vehicle. So yeah, really, really good. Like I say, the Black Raven is not as effective as it used to be. However, it is still really good. It also gives Reavers troops, and it also gives them that precious line subunit as well. Like we've said, line is probably one of the most important, you know, rules in the game, because it's only units with line that can score objectives. So to give it to your Reavers as well is really fun. Your Terminators can all deep strike again. That doesn't come standard by default. It lets you do some kind of really aggressive forces, so I really like that. We also get some unique weaponry for the Sons of Horus as well. So for 2 points you can upgrade your bolters and combi bolters to be banner strike. That gives them breaching. They've got a shorter range than usual, but yeah, giving them breaching is a pretty cool ability, which is pretty fun. Horus has had a big change in that he's got his base profile. He's amazing, as he should be, as Horus Lupercal. But for 400 points, you can upgrade him to Horus Ascended. So this represents Horus at the peak of his power. I suspect we're going to get a new model to represent Horus Ascended as well. This is him as he is fighting the Emperor, fully juiced up by the Chaos Gods. His stat line goes up considerably. He's got movement 8, weapon skill 8, ballistic skill 6, strength, toughness and wounds of 8, initiative 6, attack 6, 10 attacks and a 2+ save in his ascended form. He is crazy good. He can never be wounded on better than a 4+, and in his ascended form he gets a load of additional special rules stacked on top of that as well. So he gets fear no pain 4+, so he's ignoring half of the damage that goes through to him. He gets rage, which rage 3, so he gets 3 attacks when he charges in. Considering that he starts with 6 attacks, that's again crazy good. 9 attacks with the World Breaker, which is mental. Dark Fate is pretty fun. So he basically can die and come back to life. The first time he falls, he goes back into reserve with a single wound, and then can deploy again from reserves, which is going to be frustrating for the opponent when Horus rocks up a second time to smash in the face, I imagine, for the insult of trying to kill him. He also has the power of Chaos Eternal, which again is another crazy good rule, where he can choose for once per game to increase his strength and toughness to 10, which is just mental. And he ignores the effects of Unwieldy on World Breaker. So yeah, I mean, be able to attack with his Talon at strength 10, AP 2, melee, shred and deflagrate is just crazy, crazy good. You can only do that one time though. So yeah, he also suffers Perils of the Warp when that ends as well. So this is very much a last ditch, go mental and kill stuff kind of ability. And he probably is going to kill whatever he goes in against with that. And then Spreading Corruption is an interesting one. So demonic units can only be joined by other demons, or with units that have got the corrupted kind of special rule subtype. And this subtype can be given to other units at 25 points, meaning that you can do some cool mixed demon and space marine armies. This really represents him when he's fully in with the forces of chaos, and he's not quite the noble hero that he used to be. So that's pretty fun. You can do some interesting armies. Now obviously with Horus Ascended being 1,000 points, you're only going to be able to use them in 4,000 point games, which makes sense. This kind of gives me hope as well that we'll see a profile for the Emperor, and perhaps Horus Ascended versus the Emperor as a diorama. I dread to think how much that'd be, but it'd be amazing. Maybe with a sanguineous scenic base on there as well for extra chuckles. But yeah, I'd really love to see him in his more kind of corrupted and evil state, because he's quite noble and still kind of height of him being the War Master in the current model. So it'd be nice to see him in his evil form with his illuminated kind of visor and looking a bit more bloated and evil. I think that'd be really fun to see. Again, not massive changes for the rest of the Sons of Horus force. We get the usual units that you would expect. Malagurst does deserve a bit of a special shout out in that the unit that he joins gains that super important line subtype. So already you can see you've got your standard troops choices with line. Reavers can get line in that right of war. You could actually attach Malagurst to a unit of Terminators or something and make them line too. And what's really cool with him is that if he is on an objective, only other line units can deny it. So if you're able to grind down their line units, they're not going to be able to shift him off the objective unless they kill him. And again, if you stick him with a unit of Terminators or something, so he can't be kind of like made vulnerable, then yeah, that's a pretty good way of holding objectives. So really like Malagurst. Again, we get Abaddon. He gets a 4+, feel no pain with him and his unit if he deep strikes in. And we've got Loken if you do want to do a kind of loyalist force for the Sons of Horus. Next up we get another one of the more kind of unusual ones, I guess, the Word Bearers. They are fanatical in their belief, and as such, in a draw they will always count as winning by 1, and their leadership characteristic can never be dropped below 6 as well. So not the greatest Legion ability compared to some of the other ones, but still pretty good. Their advanced reaction is really good though. So this glorious martyrdom means that if a unit is shot at, you can choose to just kill a model in the unit and then the shooting attack fails. So if somebody's shooting at your elite units with some particularly potent weaponry and you reckon they can probably do a couple of, you know, get rid of the squad or do quite some damage, you can instead choose to just sacrifice one of your guys and then the attack never happens. So that's a pretty cool ability, and I think that'd be pretty strong. Again, it's only once per use, but it could make a difference in a big fight. Now the Word Bearers are all about kind of demons and mutants and all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that I really kind of go in for, the possessed side of the Word Bearers. And thankfully there's a way of doing a fully possessed army. The Last of the Serrated Sun lets you take the Galvor back as a troops choice, which is really, really cool. And you can give them Dreadclaw drop pods that they don't normally get as well. So for a full kind of like drop pod assault Galvor back army, which would be really, really fun. That is kind of boosted further, as we'll see with Argyle Talon a bit. You can actually make the Galvor back line as well, so I think that'd be a really, really fun army to do. We get some unique weaponry for them as well, tainted weapons, warp fire weapons, which are all pretty fun. We also see the rules for the corrupted unit subtype as well, and this is how I think the Gorval back have got the corrupted keyword, so by being able to give corrupted to your characters, you can have them join them, and again technically demons as well. They also get a unique consul, the Diabolist, who's pretty fun. He's a bit of a kind of evil psyker person, as you'd expect for the Word Bearers. Yeah, they get some pretty cool stuff. Lorgar, similarly to Horus, has 2 profiles. It's not a change in the stat line as such, but you can pay him to become kind of corrupted. He gains his evil kind of psychic powers instead of the general ones that he gets. And what's really cool is that he can fill any non-compulsory slots in the Force org chart with Runestone demons as well. So Lorgar really lets you do a mixed kind of demons and Chaos Space Marines army, closer to what we'd get when we get to the 40k timeline. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, I think what I'll be leaning into is taking the Galvor back, having them as my base kind of troops. Take Lorgar to do some shenanigans. If you take where's he gone? Zardulak's pretty cool. He's a cool psyker. Argyle Tal, you make the Gorval back line. Now unfortunately he has to be your warlord if you do that. So if you do want to go kind of like pure big gribbly possessed kind of army, you're not going to be able to take the Primarch because he has to be the leader. But, you know, you could still take some squads of, you know, demons. We don't know what demons have got the line keyword. So you could take the Primarch as your Warlord, still take the Gorval back as troops choices, and then fill your non-compulsory troops choices with line demon units if they exist. So that's a pretty cool option. The Margal Dreadnought is basically a corrupted Dreadnought. He's pretty cool. And then, yeah, Zardu, like we've looked at, he's still his Blade Guard. He's quite expensive, but he's a pretty good psycho with a load of cool rules. Argyle Tal's an absolute beast. And then Erebus is an interesting one as well. If you don't want to go down the line of taking the Primarch, you can take Erebus, and he lets you take 3 Elite or HQ demon slots as part of your army, and then you can summon them to the battle during the game. Obviously the downside to that is that if Erebus gets killed, you've lost access to those demon units, but it's a pretty good option. He's also a pretty good option to ally into another force if you maybe want some demon support there. We don't know if they can ally in with the Runestorm demon list. That might be a pretty cool way of having a mixed kind of demon and marine force. Again, we'll get more info on that once the Runestorm book comes out. But yeah, I quite like the word bearers, and I think I might do a little force of these. Just again, I've got a big demon army, so being able to take a relatively small word bearer army and fill a lot of those non-compulsory slots with demons, I think it'd be really, really fun. And yeah, I love these guys. And the new plastic possessed as well should be on the same base size as these, so it should be pretty easy to do a force of them. So finally we come to the Alpha Legion. These are the super sneaky shenanigans, all sorts of tricks going on. Legion, and they have kind of like 2 parts to their Legion ability. The first one is alright. They count as 2 inches away than they should be for the purposes of all kind of like shooting and psychic powers and all that kind of stuff and charges, which is okay, it's pretty good. What's really cool though is the rewards of treachery. Basically it lets you, instead of taking that, pick another Space Marine Legion trait to have as your own, and you also get to unlock one of their special characters. And this basically represents the Alpha Legion who are kind of infiltrating those units and pretending to be Ultramarines or Imperial Fists or whatever. I've seen a lot of cool paint schemes where people have done Alpha Legion revealing themselves to be the traitors that they actually are. And you can actually kind of go into that further. Base, you get 1 unit, but if you take the coils of the Hydra, what you can actually do is have up to 3 units from that parent list, and really have a kind of like focused, where pretending to be Raven Guard. So here's some cool Raven Guard units things. So yeah, there's some really fun stuff you can do with the Alpha Legion. They also get a unique character, a Saboteur, who is in false colours. He's basically disguised as the opposing army, and he can't be shot until he makes his first move, so he can be really annoying and kind of get in the way and set itself up to get into a good position before he strikes. Alpharis is pretty fun. At the start of the game he can pick up to 3 units and give them Infiltrate, Scout or Deep Strike, and again you don't have to declare that until we get to you know, starting deployment, so that gives you some options on what to do. Yeah, they're really fun. I quite like the look of the Alpha Legion. I think we could do some really fun stuff with them. And yeah, I mean, in this book in general, there's loads of fun stuff you can do with Legions, and one of the advantages of having all the different Legions in one book is that obviously you've got your core army that you collect in, but you've got another 8 armies in here that you could pick from when making your forces. So yeah, I think a lot of traitor players will probably be tempted to start multiple traitor forces, and again fold in the Liber Astartes as well, the kind of companion book covering the Loyalist Legions, and between the 2 books you can make a load of different books. Like I say, it's a big chunky book, so yeah, definitely a nice one to have on the shelf. So yeah, that was a quick look at the Liber Hereticus. Like I say, what we're going to do is on the website have a bit of a deeper dive into some of the kind of Legion specific, the generic Space Marine list in here, and go into what's changed and what's what's new, what's worth taking. Unfortunately, just did not have enough time to get that included on this video, otherwise it'd be like 2 hours long and nobody wants to sit through a 2 hour long video. So that will follow in the week where we dig into the kind of individual unit choices. We've also filmed the kind of companion video to this, looking at the Astartes book, and we've got 4 write-ups on the website for both of these as well. We've also today got the Age of Darkness unboxing up, and unboxings for the Kratos, the Special and Heavy Weapons, and the Rhino as well. So there is a ton of Horus Heresy content up today if you want to check it out. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, why not give us a like and a follow. We've got loads of videos coming. Like I say, there's a load of Heresy stuff up already today, and we've got regular unboxings, battle reports, painting videos, all that kind of stuff. We are planning on doing some Horus Heresy battle reports as well. I think we're planning on doing Imperial Fists versus Sons of Horus soon, so I will be commanding Horus and hopefully laying low Dawn and his lapdogs of the Emperor. So yeah, until next time, I hope you have a great weekend and we'll see you soon.